We were not walking in wondering whether they were technically competent. Frankly, we'd already answered that question for ourselves, and both of us have been licensed advisors, and so technical competence was something we were pretty good at vetting. I can't wait to introduce you to Knowing Me, Knowing You, the Knomee podcast where the future of financial advice starts with discovery. We're bringing you candid conversations with top industry leaders, innovators, and behavioral finance experts, exploring how wealth managers can deepen client relationships, personalize advice at scale, and drive real business growth. Because clients don't just want financial plans, they want to feel understood. They want to be known. Stay tuned, subscribe, and get ready to transform the way you connect with clients. Knomee, transforming discovery into growth. Hi there. I wanted to talk about something different today. About a year ago, I experienced wealth management from the other side of the table. My husband and I decided it was time to find a financial advisor. It wasn't because I was looking for ideas for Knomee. We genuinely wanted to go through the process ourselves. We had purchased some hot stocks post-COVID, and we wanted to diversify. It was actually years in the making. A lot of prodding and nudging finally got to, okay, let's interview a few. We did what I suspect that many affluent investors do today. We asked friends for recommendations. We spent time on firm websites. I looked through LinkedIn profiles, listened to podcasts, read some articles. We tried to get a sense not only of what these firms did, but who they were, how they were differentiated from each other, what they believed, whether they seemed like people we'd actually want to spend time with. Eventually, we narrowed the list to 3 firms and committed to going through each of their discovery processes. What surprised me wasn't the quality of the advisors. They were all thoughtful, experienced, and genuinely interested in helping us. Every one of them had a clear process. They knew exactly how they wanted to structure the conversation, to woo us. They knew what information they needed to collect and how they would ultimately develop a financial plan. They were doing exactly what they had been trained to do. But as I drove home after those meetings, I found myself thinking about something I couldn't quite shake. There were several moments when I wanted the conversation to go deeper. My husband and I have totally different money beliefs. I'm American. I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, a believer and beneficiary of the American dream. I'm taking a big financial risk. I'm launching a startup after 22 years in the financial industry. He was not born in America. He has a very different relationship with money. His parents had solid government jobs and enjoyed the benefits of public retirement program. He's risk-averse and he appreciates stability. The differences in our money beliefs had inhibited us from taking action countless times. The advisors and business development people asked about our assets, our goals, our family, our retirement timeline, our estate plans, our risk tolerance, our experience with investing. They gathered information any good advisor would need to begin building a financial plan. But I kept hoping for more, different, more personal. I wanted someone to help us think together, to break through patterns and make better decisions. I wanted someone to ask the question that I hadn't thought to ask myself. I wanted someone to notice something in what I'd said, or something my husband had said, and become curious enough to explore it. To help me articulate what was actually driving the decisions my husband and I were trying to make, and the ones that we had been struggling with. What if financial planning wasn't just about numbers, but about you, your values, your goals, your vision for the future? Knomee is transforming client discovery for wealth managers, going beyond assets and risk scores to uncover what truly matters. With behavioral insights and real-time data, Knomee helps advisors personalize advice, build deeper connections, and grow their businesses. Because the best financial decisions start with knowing you. Discover the future of client engagement at Knomee.com. Instead, I realized that every advisor despite their different personalities and firms, followed remarkably similar discovery processes. They were executing them well, but they were dated, stale processes. They were moving through a framework that had been designed decades ago, long before the way people chose advisors fundamentally changed. It felt like a sale. I realized that since my father became an advisor in 1984 until today, the first meeting hasn't changed. Everything before it, however, has. By the time my husband and I sat down with those advisors, we had already spent weeks researching them. We'd formed opinions about each firm. We developed expectations about what those conversations would feel like. We were not walking in wondering whether they were technically competent. Frankly, we'd already answered that question for ourselves, and both of us have been licensed advisors, and so technical competence was something we were pretty good at vetting. What we were really trying to determine was something much harder to measure. Do these people understand us? Not our portfolio, not our balance sheet, not our history, but us. That realization had stayed with me because I think it points to one of the biggest opportunities in wealth management today. Advisors spend an enormous amount of time refining what happens during the first meeting. Meanwhile, the prospect's journey began weeks, sometimes months, before anyone accepted that calendar invitation. The firms investing in organic growth have started to recognize this, and kudos to them. They are building sophisticated business development teams. They're investing in thought leadership, podcasts, webinars, LinkedIn, educational content, digital marketing. They're working hard to create value before an advisor even picks up the phone. That's the right strategy. But I think there's one more step. Because if marketing has spent weeks earning trust and creating understanding, the advisor shouldn't have to start all over the moment they say, "Tell me about yourself." After those meetings, I started digging into research to see whether my experience reflected something larger. What I found was remarkably consistent. HSBC recently surveyed 10,000 affluent and high net worth investors across 10 global markets. One of the findings that stood out to me wasn't simply that investors are using AI. It was how they're using AI. They're researching firms, preparing questions, and arriving at meetings better informed than ever before. They're not replacing human advisors. They're expecting more from them. Then I came across some research from EY, their latest global wealth research. Nearly half of affluent investors said that they expect to move up to 50% of their assets from their current wealth manager. And the average wealthy client now works with more than 2 advisory firms. Think about what that means. By the time someone agrees to meet with an advisor today, they've often evaluated multiple firms, they've consumed content, compared philosophies, developed expectations about what the conversation should feel like. They might have already even decided exactly how much of the pie they're willing to give to a new advisor. They're not walking into the meeting looking for more information. They're looking for confirmation that they've found the right partner. And I think that's where one of the biggest opportunities in organic growth begins. It's exactly why we built Knomee. It's not to replace the advisor, not to automate discovery, certainly not to train advisors to sound like robots. We built it because we believe the first meeting should begin with understanding, not information gathering. It's not an equal playing field. They know much more about you than you know about them. What if you knew more about that prospect before they ever sat down with the advisor? Knomee gives them a chance to reflect on what matters most, identify the questions they really want answered, and articulate their motivations and concerns that are often really difficult to put into words. We use behavioral science because it's proven, it's tested, it's research-backed. The advisor walks into the meeting with meaningful context. The prospect walks in with greater clarity about themselves. Instead of spending the first 30 minutes collecting facts, they spend their time having the conversation that actually matters. I'm curious what you think, and if you're open to experimenting with giving the prospect a tool that helps them walk in and have a more effective meeting, a more meaningful conversation, and get more value out of you the first time. Thank you for joining us on the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more transformative conversations to you. Until next time, keep discovering, keep growing, and remember, you're in control of your own financial story. Follow us for more conversations on financial confidence, self-discovery, and the future of money.